I'd like to call the PZA meeting for July 21st to order, please. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Featherling?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Tholen? Mr. Payton?
Here.
Ms. Peters? Present. Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Snipes? Mr. Sponson?
Present.
Mr. Dunnell? Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra?
Present.
Ms. Bryan?
Present.
Mr. Collins?
Present.
Ms. Hudson?
Present.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Searoy? We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, first up we have public comment. We have Mr. Barron is here. Support residential causes to reverse. Okay. Thank you. All right, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Barron. I'm an attorney, and I'm representing Duncan Holmes, who is an applicant on a zoning case that you have before you. This is the residential conversion of the former State Hospital Administration building out on the Diversitech campus. I was here last month on behalf of the company as well to present our proposal and to speak about it a bit. Since we last spoke, we did regroup. We modified our plans in order to address some of the issues that were brought up. I think that what we put together addresses those issues and also gathers information that was requested by either ZBA members or members of this committee. That did lead to, on Monday evening, a 6-0 unanimous approval, voting in favor of the proposal that we put together. You'll see in the packet, and I'm sure that you'll hear in a moment, that we have submitted a number of architectural drawings showing the layout of the proposed reconversion, going from what we had previously proposed as 28 units down to 25 units. It also has the floor plan showing the 3 floors, an assembly of 1 and loft units. It shows also features of a fitness center, as well as laundry, and the layout of the individual units themselves. We've also provided a number of photographs that are included as exhibits, really to depict the type of housing that we're seeking to do here. This is something that is not seen in Kankakee County anywhere else, so we thought it would be helpful to show you successful, high-quality, high-end units that are prepared and have been manufactured successfully elsewhere that we'd like to bring to Kankakee County. One thing that goes along with the floor plan you'll see is that none of the units are over 800 square feet, which means that each unit only needs to have 1.5 dedicated parking spaces. That means if we're gonna have 25 units, there will need to be 38 spaces. That is met currently with the number of existing spaces on the property and the south lot that we'd be purchasing as part of this project. That we believe is going to alleviate any concerns as to the parking issues or use of public parking. As we stated before, we'd be making also additional amenities so that the dedicated parking, assigned parking, is more attractive, would be covered so that it would be used as opposed to any sort of public parking being used. As was requested at the last committee meeting, the development team did reach out to the Sheriff's Department, and you'll see there is an email and then in there that indicates that the sheriff has no issue with the proposed development. Also, we had testified previously at the ZBA hearing that in the last week and a half there was actually a break-in at this location at Diversitech. It's our view that by having an occupied building, you're much less likely to see any continued break-ins in this location. Finally, just a few points to reiterate about the history of this location. Previously, when this was used as a headquarters for Midland State, or excuse me, for Homestar, there were 85 employees. Here we'd be seeking, because of 25, we have 25 units at most, 50 residents, but more likely closer to 40. Also, before it was a bank headquarters, it was the state hospital headquarters. When the hospital was being used in its prime, at that point, across the entire Diversitech campus, there were 8,300 patients and 2,700 employees. And at that point, there were no back roads. So this is an area that has previously accommodated a considerable number of people, and we think that the proposed residential reconversion will be able to accommodate that very easily. So we do ask you to vote in favor of this project that will bring a new type of housing to a growing and unmet demand that exists here in Kankakee County. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I have. We still have to do this, though, or is anybody else? I can ask anybody else. That was it. Okay, that was the only one. Okay. Thank you. Okay, everyone received the minutes in your packets and online. Does anyone have any additions, deletions, or corrections that need to be made? If not, I entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Miller, Mr. Eckhoff, second by Mr. Eckhoff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, thank you. Okay, building report. Mr. Skimmerhorn's here to give us our building report. Pretty busy month.
Hit number 3. Good morning. The monthly building report for June 2021, we had 0 new houses, 107 total permits with a valuation of $7,195,000. Brought in total revenue of $45,906. That is up from last year in June. Last year in June, we brought in $37,438 with a total of 105 permits. So both permits and revenue were up this year.
That's all?
Any questions on that?
Any questions from anybody on the building report? Pretty busy month, though.
Yes.
We don't have to approve that, do we, Kelly?
Yes.
We have to vote on it. Okay, we have a motion to approve it. Okay, Mr. Swanson, Ms. Peters, second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Thank you. Okay, next up is zoning case, ZBA case 2103, request for rezoning from I-2 General Industrial District to R2 High Density Residential District. Special use permit number 6 and 5 variances, lot size, density, maximum floor area, front setback, and building height on a parcel generally situated in section 26 of Manteno Township. The petitioners are Midland State Bank property owner, and Duncan Homes Incorporated is the applicant. Okay,
Okay. Mr. Barron gave a fairly good overview a few moments ago, so I won't repeat a lot of that. I will draw your attention to a few things. First of all, everyone's familiar with the property. It's in Diversitech campus with the red box around it there. It's the first building you see as you come up the entrance from the east. They also have the box in blue, which is a partially vacant lot with a parking lot on, and that would provide the parking area for this facility. I believe there's 26 parking spaces there and 12 of them on the actual red lot, equaling about 36 parking spaces. And as Mr. Barron did allude to earlier, that meets the requirements of our ordinance for the number of parking spaces required for a 25-unit building with square footage of each apartment less than 800 square feet. I do want to bring your attention to a few of the exhibits that are in your packet. First of all, there is a email from the Sheriff Mike Downey stating the Kankakee County Sheriff's Office has no issues with this case. At the previous meeting, we did discuss the Manteno Township letter and the Economic Alliance letter. Those are also in your packet if you'd like to read those. But if you go to Exhibit E, that is the floor plan done by, I believe, Cole Jarvis Architecture that shows the generalized layout. Yeah, I believe this is still conceptual. These are not actual construction drawings, but gives you an idea of how the building would be laid out. The first one is an overview aerial photography of the property, showing the parking areas. Page 2 is the lower floor layout, which is apartments and a laundry room. They did testify that that laundry room could also be used as an office instead of a laundry room or something of that nature, but it would be a common use room. If you go to the first floor, that's more apartments on that floor. That'd be the next page. And if you go to the page after that, that is the second floor plan. And the only real difference here is there is a fitness center being proposed for use by the residents. It was asked if that would be a commercial fitness center, and the answer was no, it was for the residents' use only. So, and the last page is a general concept of an enlargement of what each apartment would actually look like. These are all one-bedroom apartments, like I said, under 800 square feet. In fact, many of them closer to more around 550 square feet. So there's that one. I'll give you guys a few moments to look at that.
Okay.
All right, hang on.
Anyone
want to take questions?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions for Dell while he's getting ready? No? Mr. Kirkstra, Mr. Snipes, nothing?
Sure. Change this from industrial to a residential to? Is that what the I is for?
The property is currently zoned I2 General Industrial, yes.
Okay.
This
And they want to
particular piece of property has never been used for an industrial use.
Okay, well, it's just zone I2.
It's been a bank, I think, twice. I think there's been 2 banks in there, and prior to that, it was the administrative center for the state hospital.
Okay, and they want to make it into 1-bedroom apartments.
Right, they want to turn it into a residential use. Yes.
And there's no, I'm going to look from at the paperwork, but there's no objections from anybody in that?
We will get to those.
You'll get to those?
I will get to those.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I wanted to get through the exhibits and all of that first, then we'll talk about what happened at the actual meeting.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Nothing from the board and no more questions? Okay.
One
it
thing
back over to Del.
probably to note, since you brought that up, if you look at the aerial photo up there, this is kind of in the center of the residential area of the Diversitech campus. You can see that there's houses to the north, south. Those are all those buildings, for the most part, except for that one directly north, are residential buildings. Those are all residential homes. Okay, so it's not really in the industrial part of that. If you recall, Diversitech campus is a PUD that allows commercial, residential, and industrial. So it's a mixed-use development, and this portion here near the entrance has mainly developed into the residential portion. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Yes, and this proposal is for an apartment building. This is not a condominium complex with a homeowners association or anything like that.
The testimony is that it is an apartment building under one ownership.
Under one ownership.
The apartments would be rented. Okay. All right.
Anyone else? No?
I'd like to take you to Exhibit F. The applicants gave this to the zoning board Monday night, and these are conceptual photos of what the interiors of the apartments could look like. There's 2 or 3 pages here. These are not the actual ones of this particular structure. This is the type of look that they are going for. Like I said, this is conceptual. They are definitely looking for a high-end type of facility.
They mentioned the rents too, right?
What's that?
They mentioned the rent amounts too.
I'm speaking to the mic, I believe.
At the
Everybody should hear.
ZBA meeting, I believe they mentioned the rent amounts were what they were too.
Yes, they said that they would be looking at rents from between $1,300 and $1,700 a month.
Thank you.
I'll give you a moment to look through those. He said these are not specific to this site. This just gives you an idea of the type of architecture and type of materials and the look of the apartments.
Okay, Kimberly, sorry, number 7.
We're not talking about, are they gonna have any garages?
Put the mic.
Sorry, I thought I had it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will they have any garages or just regular parking, or will there be?
They're not necessarily garages, but they did talk about they're exploring the possibility of putting covered parking in the parking lot across the street. They did not specify that it would actually be enclosed parking, but covered parking.
Okay.
And they talked about that as part of an incentive to and another amenity to the facility. That is not actually in their plans. As shown here right now, but they did talk about that in the testimony on Monday night.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The parking lot to the south, I believe that they're looking to acquire, would there be a crossing there for pedestrians to go from the?
Yes, one of the the only condition that the zoning board put on it was that the developer install and maintain a crosswalk between the facility and the remote parking lot.
Okay. Another question is.
Including signage, safety signage too, so.
Great. There's an existing elevator in the structure. Is that sufficient for residential or passes an inspection?
We believe so, but that would come through the architectural review process when they apply for the actual building permit.
Okay.
The utilities will be checked, the it'll be checked for building codes at that time.
Okay,
Plans have to go out for review, Mr. Miller.
okay. And then the possibility of street improvements, if there was a complaint that the streets are insufficient for the amount of traffic, is there a possibility that the streets could be improved, or are they kind of landlocked?
I mean, I think the streets can always be improved, but that was never discussed at the hearing. The roads out there are under Manteno Township's jurisdiction. There was some comments about traffic. Nobody has presented a traffic study or traffic counts to show whether that would be needed or not needed.
Okay.
Okay. I can tell you, as far from a traffic standpoint, it was testified that when it was a bank, there was about 85 employees per day working at the bank, and we're looking at now about, with 2 people living in each apartment, 50 residents. So it should be less traffic than the bank was. Now, of course, different times a day possibly, but
Going the other way.
the traffic should be less.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Snipes, you had another one?
Yeah, could you give me, or do you have any clarity? I'm going to probably figure that these are not going to be Section 8 apartments based upon the cost, but on the rent. But the tax base going from a I-2 to a R2, is there an increase, decrease in the tax base that we know of to the community? Or
That would be a question for the assessor. If you improve a building, then that value of that improvement does affect your tax bill, because your tax bill is based on the value of the building. That's about all I could say on that.
Oh.
What their actual tax bill would be, whether it be higher or lower, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Mrs. Peters.
Thank you, Chairperson. I did ask the assessor, and he did say that it would probably be an increase to the tax base. So about that, I did ask about that particular project.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Kirkstar.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, going back to the, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Going back that the infrastructure study for just for instance, the topic that was brought up was the roadways. I understand this facility before was not a public facility set up for residential, but that it was more or less set up for, what would we say, a light commercial or light industrial. Yeah. And most of the access and roadways were not necessarily set up for residential districts. Has there been any studies on the effects of that? And I understand that that actually in that area, the township is the one that is responsible for maintaining that or whatever, and that they had an objection over it because of the simple fact that the roadways were not actually wide enough for residential use. So putting this in, even though it's less traffic that you claim you're going to originally have from the original diagram, it's still, this is changing to a residential area. So have those studies been done, how this is going to affect the area surrounding this, since this is basically a small community itself?
Yeah.
I am not aware of any studies that have been done on the roadways. It's not really turning into a residential area. As I stated earlier, it is a residential area. The roads are 60 or 66 feet wide, which is the minimum requirement for residential areas. I don't know the pavement width, but they're 2 lanes. Appears to be probably 12-foot lanes, which would be the minimum requirement by our subdivision ordinance for a residential street. So from what I can see, it meets the requirements for residential streets.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkstone. Mr. Wheeler.
You know, that was my only question is you know, everything around this is residential as well, directly around it.
Right.
So it is in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yes, this is the residential portion of Diversitad campus. Okay. There are probably a couple of 100 houses in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have anything? Good discussion on that topic?
Now we'll go on to what happened at the zoning board hearings. During the hearing process, we had several comments from citizens and public officials. If you look at the finding of fact report, you can read along yourself if you'd like. It looks like this. It's in your packet. There was 2 hearings. The first one on June 14th. Mr. Ron Meyer, who's the Manteno Township Commissioner, he spoke about issues that he perceives with residents crossing the street to access parking. The zoning board listened to him, and that's how the crosswalk condition was placed onto the approval. Mark Stevenson, he felt that the density will have an impact on the school district and the general area of the development. He also has concern about access to the elevator and ADA compliance. Greg St. Aubin, he's an adjoining landowner to the Diverse Tech campus and believes it is disingenuous to add multifamily housing to the campus. He felt that when the Diverse Tech campus was first put together, that residential uses were not supposed to be allowed there. I could find no evidence of that. In fact, the plan for Diverse Tech campus does call for residential uses. So, then the public hearing on June 19th, last Monday, Ron Meyer spoke again. He had concerns that the plans have changed between the 2 hearings, with the apartments getting smaller and the units getting less, and he's also still concerned about traffic and public safety. I can tell you that the applicants did state that the reason the plans changed was in response to the planning and zoning board's concerns. Then we have Paulette Tobel. She's a nearby resident as well. She's concerned with the safety of the remote parking area and with fire and ambulance access to the building. She also stated that she does not believe the sewer tiles can accommodate the additional residences. The capacity of the sewer will be addressed during the building permit stage. Obviously, if improvements to the sewer system needs to be made, the developer will have to work with, I believe it's Karma up there now, to get that accomplished. There was some discussion on fire and ambulance access, and the zoning board did not believe that that was an issue, since there is the building is surrounded by roads and the driveway for the parking area. They believe there was plenty of access for fire and ambulance. Liz Stevenson, she's a nearby business owner, and she stated that Diverse Tech has industrial and commercial uses, Section 8 housing, drug rehabilitation clinic, and Indian Oaks Academy, and she questioned whether the high-end apartments would be successful in this location. She is also concerned about non-emergency police calls and stated that the response time is around 45 minutes. She also had questions about the historic preservation aspect of the project, and the applicants explained that process to her. She asked if the building would be adult only, and the applicant stated that the law would not permit them to place a restriction on the project. She also stated she believed that the rent per month would not be viable in the market, and she is concerned the project will become Section 8 housing. Mike Hasman, a nearby property owner, supports the concept and believes the building should be residential and not commercial. As a landlord of over 83 units, he believes there is a market for high-end apartments, as he gets inquiries about them frequently. He also stated that of all the uses that could be in the building, he believes this one is the best. In addition to that, as I said, we have Exhibit A is a letter from Manteno Township that's in your packet. Exhibit B is a letter from Tim Nugent at the Economic Alliance of Kankakee County in support of the project. And we have a email from a Donald and Kim Christensen, which also live in the neighborhood near it, stating that they are in favor of the project. The zoning board reviewed their findings of fact, and they are in your packet. There are a lot of findings on this particular one. I will go through them if you would like. And ultimately voted 6-0 to recommend the approval with the condition of the crosswalk.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about the zoning board meeting? Ms. Peters?
3 questions. The elevator, are there any limitations or on people on different levels with elevators in a living space?
I don't know that I'm following. I don't know that I'm following you.
Okay.
The number of people that can use an elevator,
Or
the number of elevators.
the number of people on a floor that, with an elevator, is there I know there's maximum occupancy in the elevator, but you don't have any.
You have to have an ingress and egress plan on a building like this, which would be provided at the building permit review process, and that would be addressed then.
Okay, good.
At this point, I could not say. It's a possibility that another elevator would have to be added.
Okay, and then building occupancy, is there a maximum amount?
There is, and that is set by the fire chief.
Okay, and ADA, I didn't see anything in the packet about being ADA compliant.
Again, that would be at the building permit level, and ADA would definitely have to be addressed.
Just because, you know, we had so many problems with the courthouse. It's also a historic preservation building, and we did have to comply with ADA there, so.
And this building would have to also.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. Mr. Wheeler?
Just a couple things. Who is the engineer that reviews the sewer? Is it the applicants or is it the county before they issue the permits?
That would be Karma's engineers.
Karma's engineer, do we have third-party review since we're issuing it?
On sewer, no.
Not on sewer?
Not on sewer.
Okay.
If it was a septic system, we certainly would. But
Okay. I want to clarify that. And then how was parking addressed? It seems like that was something that was a sticking point for the township, like one of the remaining ones, I guess. How was that addressed by the ZBA and the applicant and the complaints and the assertions and all of that, I guess?
Okay. Well, if you look at the map, there are 12 parking spaces within the red box, which is also the parcel that has the building on it. Directly across the street, the blue box is also property that will be owned by the applicant that already has a parking lot on it for the bank. There are, I believe it's either 25 or 26 parking spaces there. According to our ordinance, for apartments that are less than 800 square feet, you need 1.5 parking spaces per apartment. So that would require, I think, 35 parking spaces. So they already have adequate parking spaces to meet the needs. That parcel on the south has a lot of vacant area, so there is room to expand parking area there too as well if they needed it. They did discuss the possibility of covered parking in the southern lot, and that's about all that was addressed on parking.
So it meets our standards?
Yes, it meets our standards, correct.
Good, thank you.
I believe the part of the concerns with the township is if you look to the west, across the street there are public parking spaces there. And I think there's some concern that the residents of this would be taking up those public parking spaces instead of using the parking lots. There's on-road parking spaces, public parking spaces in the area.
Okay. Mr. Kirkstra?
Yes, you mentioned the sewer system being adequate or has been approved for this increase. Just before you answer, what about the water supply for that area? How is that up to standard or up to code?
The building is currently connected to both sewer and water.
Yes.
Presumably it's up to code. That is an issue for Karma and Aqua, Illinois.
Right.
They maintain their own systems, so the applicant will have to be in discussions with them as to whether they have the proper capacity there, and if not, what needs to be done to improve that capacity. So that is a separate negotiation between those entities and the developer. It is quite conceivable that zoning, and that's what we're talking about today, is just zoning. Is this building suitable for this use? That they could get zoning and maybe still not be able to do the project because of some other issue, such as sewer capacity or something of that nature. That's certainly a possibility. But you know, sewer lines can be improved.
Okay, Mr. Swanson?
Yeah, Thanks, Chairman. Dell, question. The applicant has an intent to buy this property to complete this project. Would there be a requirement from the county that both parcels of land be purchased at the same time? Meaning, not that, you know, you can buy the main building and start building 3, and once you hit the requirement for more parking, then purchase.
Now, actually, our ordinance requires when you have remote parking, not only do they have to own both lots, the parking lot must have a deed restriction put on it that it cannot be sold without being sold with the other lot. So they must always be tied together.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And in the application, that paperwork is provided.
Okay. Mr. Steins.
Okay, so it looks like this is a, I guess, a tri-residential area, because it deals with the industrial and a little commercial and the residential. I'm looking at what's around it, just for the purpose of safety. We have Section 8 housing, a drug rehabilitation clinic, and then we have Indian Oaks. It's almost like, so he's, if you're looking at a high-end apartment, people look towards the area of aesthetically and public safety reasons. They would look at, you know, is this justified in this particular area? Is it suitable for this, you know, because they're saying high-end. It looks like you're saying this individual, and is it the mayor or I think Mike Hazeman said there's a lot of requests for it, but is this, I guess, suitable given what's around it? Section 8 is not a problem because that's just simply saying they're providing it for the moderate to low income, but with Indian Oaks and some other, I mean, and the rehab there, I'm just wondering, is this the best suitable for just public safety reasons to plant?
That's a question for the board to answer. I mean, is it suitable for this area?
Yeah. So that's our decision here, is if the zoning is okay. Everything else is reviewed by building architects, building department,
Right.
Karma,
It will be reviewed for
Aqua.
utilities, ADA, compliance.
electricity, all that kind of things. If property setbacks, there's a variances in here. We got
There are variances for that.
there's 6, right, Bill?
5.
Five variances, which is quite a few for a piece of property, but it's already there. The variances are for things that are already there.
It's
so.
a unique piece of property, yes. The existence of the building and its location is what is the impetus for the variances.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I also heard the word historical. They have not made this historical, because if that was the case, then we would have to defer almost to them whether they want any changes to the building. So hopefully it's not.
They are, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. They are intending to apply for historical preservation status on the building. They have not done so yet. If they do that, the outside of the building is what would be, the exterior would be preserved. They can certainly make changes to the interior of the building. So that's how they could use it for apartments or other things.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more time. Anybody else have anything? Anybody have any comments they want to make about this project? Okay, Ms. Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
1 second. 6.
If we're looking at the safety of the building, I'd like to see if we have any say over it, the laundry in the units and not separate.
We really have no say over that.
We have no say, okay.
Okay, I had a couple quick things to discuss about that I got answers to from Dell and other people. Is that I was concerned with landmark status if we lose it off the tax rolls, and we don't. It stays on tax rolls. Is that right, Mr. Wheeler? Yeah.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
the value of the building is obviously going to increase, I believe, because of individual units that are going to be inside. So That's was one of my main concerns, was the impact of the cost to the county of us getting this. Building permit fees would be very high. Del, you got a guess on what the fees would be for something
Our
like
building
this?
permit fees are based on the value of the project, so no, I do not.
Okay, so, but I mean, guessing with all the buildings that have been around, we really don't have but 1 or 2 buildings in the county that are even like that, do we? I don't believe so, that I can think of. There's one over here by 57 that's probably got, I don't know how many units in there, and then usually we got 6 flats, 4 flats, you know, 2 flats.
By size, there are a few.
There are a
There's
few.
one by Metaview, and there's definitely the one out here by the interstate. But there's a lot of unique aspects to this. We do not have another building like this in the county with the historic architecture that this one has, with the unique location. So there are a lot of unique aspects to this project.
So, and then my other concern was, if you don't do it, what else are you gonna do there?
Right.
So that was when that's where I, you know, in my head, I'm a very property rights advocate of people's property rights that are property. They have a marketable piece of property. So if anyone likes to comment on that, then we have Mr. Eckhoff here who does this kind of stuff. I mean, you have any comments, Mr. Eckhoff? No? Okay. Okay, Mr. Wheeler.
I will just say that was my big concern, is that you almost can't give away office space these days.
I know.
And that's going to continue as more people work from home.
Yeah.
We talk about highest and best use. This is the highest and best use of a property that will probably just sit there.
Yeah.
And there'll be no taxes, because it will go to tax sale and all that other stuff down the road. So I just want everybody to consider that we don't necessarily can't direct people the type of investment to make. You can decide whether it's appropriate, but they're risking their own money on this development.
Yeah.
We're not risking ours. And if not this, and what's the other idea that you might have, and then who's going to invest in it?
Yeah.
So that's my only question.
Yeah. And the other thing Del and I had talked about was I had concerns about them, you know, building 1 unit, wait until they rent it out, and then build another one, you know. But he was saying that the building department would control all that type of thing. It would be safety aspects involved in it and things like that. So it has to go from our department over to the building department, and then they can handle it from there after it goes to county board next month. Right, Del?
It would be on the next county, depending on what happens here, yes.
Okay. So if anyone doesn't, if there's no more questions, I guess, Mr. Snipes.
Not a question, but because society is going towards this work at home more so, especially after the pandemic, I'm looking at Signet and some other places that are decreasing now individuals to work at home. I believe the applicants are being proactive in a pilot project, and so I have no objections as long as the community doesn't and the county board member that represents that area doesn't. You know, that's their money, and if they believe that they can make it work, then I'm kind of like you. I don't discourage people from property, especially when in the long run it'll benefit not only the community but the county and the city or villages that's around them. So have no objections to it.
Okay. 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 We were going to do that. Okay. Right now, I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this request. Ms. Bryant first, Colton Eckhoff with the second.
Yeah.
Approve. Yeah, to approve. Yeah, sorry, I thought I said that. Okay. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion carries. What? Good luck back there.
I did the same 390 to 510.
Was a very good discussion, everybody. Don't you think it was a good discussion? Not a slam bang?
Yeah, there's nothing to that.
Okay, next up, Del, a decommissioning plan for Kankakee Solar 2. We have that in there. We have the wages and everything in there, Del. Any discussion on decommissioning plan for Kankakee 2 Solar? You got a picture for that one, Bill?
I do not have a picture for
okay.
this. The decommissioning plan is in your packet. It is very similar to all the decommissioning plans you've seen before you. This is for the Kankakee 2 solar farm, which is, it says Bourbonnais, Illinois, which is the address, but it's actually in Rockville Township, over near the substation out on Career Center Road. It would be just west of that. The bond would be $152,511 that would guarantee the decommissioning plan be carried out, and we are asking for approval of both the decommissioning plan and the bond in that amount.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Mr. Skimmerhorn on that? No? Okay, so barring any, I guess we'll have a motion to approve that. Okay, Mr. Let's see, you're number 10. Wait, I was looking for number 10. Mr. Swanson, first?
Yeah.
Oh, you have a question?
No.
Okay, first, we'll get a second, please. Okay, Mr. Collins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Okay, start over here. Okay, Dell, we had some questions brought up about the residential use minimum lot size. I'd like to have, you said you were going to have a discussion on that. Mr. Eckhoff was, I believe, the one who asked the questions. I've asked it many times, so take it from here.
Okay, Mr. Eckhoff at last meeting asked that I give a presentation on the minimum lot size for residences in the A1 district. I'm going to back up and do a little history. Pre-1967, there was no minimum lot sizes anywhere in the county because we did not have a zoning ordinance that dictated that. Our zoning ordinance was approved. First one was March 21st, 1967. That set the minimum lot size for a residence in the A1 district at 2 acres with 250 feet of width. Then on September 8th, you can go to the next one, please. 1981, there was a large comprehensive amendment to the zoning ordinance. At that time, there was no changes to the A1 district lot size. In 1996, we had another comprehensive amendment to the zoning ordinance, and that is when the minimum lot size was changed, was raised to 20 acres with 330 feet of width, which is what we currently have today. It should be noted that the original proposal was 40-acre minimum lot size. There was a lot, go to the next one, please. There was a lot of factors that went into that decision to increase the size of lots for homes in the A1 district. And there was a lot of research and a lot of studies that were gone through. It was not just arbitrarily raised. It was about a 2-year review period that that amendment to the ordinance went through. Some of the reasons for the increase was encroachment of non-farm residents into the agricultural areas. There was a large problem actually throughout the entire state at that time, which we still have some of it, where non-farm residences would complain about farming practices, and there was a lot of conflicts going on between residential use versus farm use, and the board at the time realized that we needed to do something to help protect our farmland and to allow our farmers to do their jobs without complaint, and that's one reason that the lot size raised. As you see, conflicts between farmers and non-farmers were happening fairly frequently. Next, another one was the rapid conversion of farmland. There were large areas that were being divided into 5-acre tracts for housing. The Platt Act, the Illinois Platt Act, which governs subdivision of land in Illinois, has the minimum requirement of a 5-acre minimum. So if you want to divide your property into 5-acre tracts and you're not creating any roads or easement of access, you do not have to have any governmental review on it. There is no permission that needs to happen. You can just do it. All you need to do is file your deeds. And that was happening at that time with great frequency. And of course, once it's divided, with our 2-acre minimum, each one was getting a house on it. So we were having these quasi mini subdivisions popping up around the county with no oversight, no thought about school bus access or impacts to the schools, impacts to the roads, or impacts to farming. So that was another reason. Another one was the cost of services. There were studies, and those studies are still out there, that show that the cost to provide governmental service to large lot individual homes often exceeded the amount of taxes collected to pay for those services. So we were actually in a deficit to provide services such as police, fire, and the like to these homes. It costs just as much to send a school bus to one home as it does to a subdivision of 20 homes. Obviously, the impact cost, our savings can be seen there. And another would be the sprawl and unharmonious land use patterns, which kind of goes back to the conflicts and no real oversight to have any type of plan or development. Next one. Here's an example of two, one in Manteno Township and one in, I think, in Rockville Township, of the 5-acre tract type divisions I was talking about. These are some of the ones that prompted part of the increase to 20 acres. So you can see how, let's just strip off 5 acres along the township road. Didn't have to make any improvements to the road because it's just a land division, not a subdivision where we can require that they improve the road, widen the road, and do things like that. Divisions like this, our subdivision process, when we have a subdivision, the plat goes out to the school district, fire district, police district, any municipalities, the township, all of them get to comment on it. When development like this occurs, none of that gets to happen. Next. Now, at that time, the county board did recognize that there is still a need and a desire for people to want to live on small lots in the rural areas. So what they did to counteract as kind of a relief valve to the 20-acre is that they created the A2 district and the rural estate district. So A2 district is the agricultural estate district, and the rural estate district, the real difference between the two, the A2 district allows 2 to 15 acres with 250 feet of frontage. That's only available outside the extraterritorial jurisdiction of a municipality, which means outside the 1.5 miles. The rural estate district, I believe, based on what I was able to research, was meant to only occur inside the 1.5 miles, which allowed smaller lot size of 1 acre with 150 feet of frontage, but that language never made it into the ordinance, so technically the way our ordinance reads, you could get that anywhere in the county. So if you want to live on smaller acreage than 20 acres in the rural area, you can apply for one of these categories if you would like to do so. And by doing so, the zoning board, this board, the county board, gets to review the proposal and take into consideration the impacts of it in that particular area. So if you want to live on smaller acreage in the rural area, you can. It just takes some extra steps.
Okay.
And there's a review process. Next one. Also, there was a bit of an outcry from the farming community about what could they do with their existing old farmsteads. So we also created the Farmstead Exemption portion of the ordinance, which allows the owner to divide off the old farmstead, had to be built prior to 2002 when this went into effect, on a 1 to 5 acre lot with 150 feet of frontage, providing it meets setbacks and some other minor criteria. So that's also another option for living in the rural area. You can use the Farmstead Exemption, and we issue probably about 20 of those a year on average. So in conclusion, next one. While we do require 20 acres in the A1 district, you can still get smaller lots, but you have to go through a zoning process to do so.
Okay, that's it, Bill? Anyone have
any
any
questions?
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Eckhoff, let's get this started here.
Just actually a comment. Very good presentation. I read the ordinance and really didn't understand it thoroughly, so that's why I went ahead and asked for this. So I appreciate it, Del.
No problem.
Okay. I have a couple quick questions that I know the answers to. I sat on the zoning board of appeals for, I don't know, 15 years, I think I was there. And all we did was hear cases about people wanting to rezone the corner of their property so their daughter could build a farmhouse there, or build a house in a residence there, or knock down the old homestead and make something new and change the a residential or agricultural estate and all the rural estates and all that type of stuff. And I don't think I ever saw any turned down. I really don't. I'd have to really look back and think, but in my head, I don't really remember any of them being turned down. But what they would do was they would come in with their daughter sitting there and go, she wants to build a house there, and they would change the zoning would all get voted for it, but that lot could have been sold the next day to somebody else after the zoning was approved to residential, or A1. The farmer could have sold it to somebody else the next day, and they I don't know, the value of the property probably doubles or triples when it goes from farm ground to rural estate. I don't know, Andy, do you know the numbers off the top of your head? No, okay. But my only concern with this is that the theory, when you read this thing, is that the theory is to save farm ground and preserve agriculture in the county. How much taxes do you get off an acre of farm ground to the county here? Let's see, Mr. Miller knows roughly what a value of an acre of farm ground is tax-wise right now. Is about $50 or something, isn't it?
No, it'd be less than that.
45 or something. So, and if Colton and I go together and we build $1 million house on 2 acres of ground out there, what's the tax bill going to be on that? 40, 50, 60, 30 grand, 40 grand? So right now in Will County, they have all kinds of places that are being built where these people are building these big, huge houses on these lots, and they're creating money and building giant courthouses and all these things for funds. And right now, you know, the county, we're all on the county board, and we know that, you know, there's a struggle every day to make it. And because of revenue, we watch revenue coming in, what's going to go out, property changes, whatever. I think that there would be a demand for estate type housing out there in the county. And if you make a guy buy 20 acres of ground, they look at that in the ordinance, they go, oh no, we don't want to do that, oh no, we don't want to go through the zoning process, oh no, we don't want to do this, and people don't come here and build that way. The rumor's out that you can't build unless you buy 20 acres, and then you got to get somebody to farm the rest of it, and you mow the rest of it. What's the purpose of that then? You know, so I mean, if you buy a 5-acre tract, you can have something, get the neighbor or the next door neighbor to farm some of it for you, because nobody wants to mow 5 acres, I don't think. I see places out there that do. So if we want to discuss this, I really would like to see it get discussed. But if you come into a zoning board of appeals meeting, there's I believe a $400 fee to have a meeting, Del? $600 fee to have a meeting. Does that cover the expenses of the meeting?
It generally costs us about $800 to $1,000 for a meeting. So depending on the cost of the court reporter and how long the meeting is.
Every time somebody comes in to change one of these that costs us money, time, Dell's time, here at night till 8 o'clock at night, you know, 6, 8, 6:30, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Some of the meetings were short and quick, but it seems like there was a lot of people out there that had bought property that realtors didn't tell them what the property was zoned. They went ahead and bought it and they didn't even know. So we got properties around that are like that. So, you know, realtors are having a control on this too. So, but think about it in your head for discussion about how you really feel about this. Does anyone have any questions about this so far? No?
One comment I would have on that is that collecting more taxes doesn't really help any of the government entities if it costs them more to provide the services than those taxes are, even if the taxes do increase.
Okay. We also know that in our county we have areas of extreme beauty. I mean, there's places you can go and walk out, and there's woods all along creeks and streams, and you know, there's people that would love to, you know, 10 people get together and build 3-acre lots or whatever to put farm ground on. But you know, that's you call the fire department for that, and there's houses there. Yeah, you could call an ambulance, and yeah, you might call the police, but I wonder how many police calls you actually get to estates, except for fake alarm calls that go off for no reason, so. But anyway, anything else, Mr. Snipes?
I think as we beginning to grow in our proximity to Chicago, Kankakee becomes more of a attractive site because of the openness versus the condensity. And given the cost of living in places like Chicago or other areas up north, when you can look at owning your own home, and when you calculate the cost of what you paid there versus what you could get here, is more of a cost savings to them. And there's also the opportunity as they're moving from being a single to moving more family oriented. You have open air, open land for the kids to kind of grow versus all the condensity of being in the city. It just makes the area more attractive because Chicago doesn't have that to offer. You're not gonna just go in and say, I want 2 acres in Chicago and think you're gonna pay what you're gonna get in Kankakee for it.
Mm-hmm. But there's, real quick on that, there's a couple areas that are done that way in Will County where there's, you know, several homes and they have little park areas and things like that too, even though they have all the space. So it could go a long way. So I just think it's something to talk about. We got Mr. Miller sitting here that can answer any questions anybody has about anything to do with farming. And most of you guys can too. A few other guys can too. So, okay, barring no more questions, let's move on to the next thing: historical preservation intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Aroma Park.
I will let Michelle explain this one to you.
Okay, Michelle, you'll go on to 18. Thank you.
Hi. We're just asking for authority for the chairman, county board chairman, to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Aroma Park, so that the Kankakee County Historic Preservation Commission is able to landmark properties within their jurisdiction. And you have in your packets that the village has agreed and they have signed their part. So now I'm just bringing it to you guys for approval.
Okay. Del, can you address what that actually covers? Or Michelle, could you address what that covers?
It would allow the Kankakee County Historic Preservation Commission that if they get an application for a property structure within the village limits, to be able to hear the case, recommend whether they landmark it or not, and then they would go to the Village of Aroma Park first for their approval before they would bring it to county board for their approval to nominate it as a landmark status.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Michelle? Okay, barring none, get a motion in a second. Ms. Bryant, Mr. Sam. Mr. Sam. First and a second. All in favor, say aye. We're not spending any money there, right? Okay. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, anything under old business? Anything under old business? New business. I had a couple questions about a couple properties in my district again. I keep, you keep coming up and you keep spinning our wheels. So I don't know, Del, can I get some kind of update on County Line Road and the house that's sitting there that's been half burned down for 3 or 4 years? 4 or 5 years, Ms. Peter?
Probably about 5.
Right? 45, I'm sorry. Yeah.
We issued a demolition permit about a month ago, I believe. Okay. They had a dumpster out there and they took the roof off of it and the gables. It stalled a little bit because now the owner is considering repairing and restoring the structure, so.
Hasn't he been doing that for
we will be, no, it's pretty much sat there abandoned for 10 years. So we're working through that. If that doesn't occur, then we'll be back to demolition.
Okay. Is there some kind of time frame that you give a guy to come up with an idea for a property, or leave it just sitting willy-nilly out there by itself?
Are you talking about this one or in general?
In general.
In general, when we find a property, our code enforcement people send out the certified letters giving them 30 days to correct the problem. That is standard. It almost never happens in that time frame because there's extensions given, and generally speaking, the letter gets the negotiations and the discussions occurring. So it usually does not get done in the 30 days, but as long as they are working with us, we would be happy to give them an extension.
Okay. The only problem that I have with it is the gateway to our community here, our county, and it's not like it's sitting out on, the middle of nowhere, and it still would be a problem. Kids can get in there, kids can start a fire. Someone is living in the residence there now in the house, so that helps out. It's not sitting out there abandoned, so.
That's actually a separate piece of property.
Separate piece of property. It's like 3 properties, right? Is that what's there? 3? Okay. And the other thing I had is the one on 10,000, the yellow house there. They keep knocking the back door down and kicking that in, and I keep running into people and they keep telling me about it, and I keep telling them we're doing what we can, but there's got to be something more that we can do to make something happen there. I know there's people around that are interested in buying it because of its location, so it doesn't have to sit there like that. It's I don't know, is that something else we have to file paperwork on or do something about? And I know Nancy was here, our state's attorney, and she had got on it a little bit a couple years ago, I believe. Andy, it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. Dell has updated me, telling they do this, they do that, and now I believe the neighbors stopped mowing the weeds last time I was by there, so they're about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. I don't know if we can start issuing him fines every week until he cuts the grass, or what we can do to get some response out of the property owner. It's still sitting there, so we get a look into that too. Okay, Mr. Snipes.
That one is in the process.
Okay.
In my planning and zoning mind, maybe it's a little borderline, but I noticed that Bradley purchased the old Carson for $1.3 million, but they bought J.C. Penney's for $577,000. And I'm looking at, there's 2 other buildings there, like Sears and there's Carson's, and I'm just wondering if we had a wish list, because I know we have a congestion in the courthouse, that if we could move the less severe, like traffic court and maybe small claims court, into one of those, like the Sears building or anything else I wonder if we could never consider that, or is that just not a possibility, because that's like low, is not the felonies and all, the felonies and all that, but it is. I was in another county like Markham and some of the ones up north, and I'm seeing that they have like a traffic court where individuals are able to come in, say what they want to do, whatever. And I was looking, I know we're looking for space. I know other stuff was turned down, but what would be the feasibility of looking at maybe purchasing that, since that went for $577, or could the county ever just use that additional space since it's out there? I'm just a wish list.
Okay, Ms. Peters?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Snipes. Will County does it at the Will County Fairgrounds, I think once a month, their traffic court. So it could be a remote.
Yeah, that does help. But I'm on the committee with the funds from the COVID funds for the courts, and we're looking at that type of stuff there, right, Andy? That's kind of that's the direction we're heading, to try to. We got to dislodge the. Somehow we got to help the courts get out of the jam they're in with the traffic, with the amount of people they have in the building over there. So we're definitely working on that one. Okay, Andy, Mr. Wheeler.
Just to say that it's been a discussion point. That committee hasn't talked about it. So if this committee wants to just say that, at some point that they, it's, I don't know, this is planning and zoning.
This is planning here.
It's planning and zoning. So, but that really falls under the courts.
Okay.
That's their call, and I would say that looking to move a courtroom out of the city of Kankakee and the proximity of the courthouse is not something that's going to be received very well. Because then you have to have duplication of jobs and services and travel times, and where do they go to pay the bill? It actually costs you a lot more money if you were to do it closer to the current situation that you have at the courthouse. You're still taking advantage of the shared services. So the idea is it's actually spot on, but it's just the location and really the overpriced nature of those properties. because that's still way too much money to pay for those properties, in my opinion.
It's just a box with a roof.
We know that the anchor stores at Lincoln Mall went for $300,000, so.
And now they're gone.
And yeah, well, yeah, but what I'm getting at, yeah, that's because actually our employee was the one who was in charge of that project to sell them off up in Matson. So I will say that that's a very, very good idea, and it's very applicable, and it would save us money in the long run to have those operations. And there's other reasons beyond just traffic court to do something like that. So just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Okay. Good discussion. Anyone else have anything under new business? And then I did have one. Oh, wait, Ms. Peters, go ahead.
Just move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Could I get a second, please? Mr. Kirkstra.
Before we go, I did
sure.
have something for new business.
Sure, new business.
And the motion can stand. It's just what I'd like to see is that at some point, if the committee agrees, a list of abandoned, dilapidated properties by township that we might have assembled here. So if we do want to prioritize, if we can get that for the next meeting or the following one, because obviously it's not, as I say, burning a hole, but you know, we should get our arms around what we've got around the county, because then Dell can explain, but we would have to buy that property for market price and then pay to have it tore down. Okay, so that's not just as easy as saying go knock the building down.
Yeah.
So if it's, you know, or not market price, it's really what the owner says it is, you know. So there's a lot of legal stuff involved, and we went through that with Nancy, or excuse me, Judge Nicholson, in the past.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that, and we can go through this when the time comes.
I don't think I could have the complete list by next PZA, but I could certainly get you like a top 10.
Is that okay?
Sure. I'd like to see us come up with a list of priorities and then some kind of process that we have to put in effect here somewhere down the line at county board or something, that we're going to have a procedure to follow and timelines to follow on these abandoned properties. If you want people to come down here and buy a nice house or build a nice house or move to communities here to increase the tax base and revenue for the area, which is, I mean, I don't like to think of things that way, but it's nice to have people move and build nice things. And if they see that house or they see other things when they come through here, they're not going to want to do it. So I'd like to see us take care of that. So, Mr. Wheeler, good comment there. Okay, anybody else have anything today under new business? We have a motion to adjourn, and we had a second. Mr. Kirkster, all in favor, say aye.